2 and a bit weeks. 2 and a bit weeks, guys. PSVR2. Oh my god. The hype just keeps coming. Every day is a struggle as I immerse myself in the snippets of news and reactions to PSVR2, and it's almost unbearable. I don't know why I'm doing this to myself. I'd be better off just forgetting about it completely for the rest of the next couple of weeks and then just have it drop. But yeah, it's hard to not just religiously follow this information because we've been looking forward to this for so long. And I haven't really used other headsets, so it's just been PSVR1 really for me. I mean, I have had a go on others, but I've never bought other VR headsets, not including those plastic shells that you put your phone in. I tried some years ago, but only for video. I never use those for games, although you could do. But yeah, there's been a lot of reviews come out now of GT7, Gran Turismo 7. Lots of impressions videos. Sony, it seems, lifted an embargo on when they invited a shitload of influencers to go and try this game. And yet they still didn't invite PSVR without parole. The most loyal PSVR hype engine on the internet did not get an invite, presumably. I don't think they did. This might be because they've done a few leaks. Well, that's not really their fault. They're just reporting on stuff, information they've been told. They had no agreement with Sony not to. Anyway, getting off point. The reaction to Gran Turismo 7 is across the board. Oh my god. People are stunned by how this game runs in VR. The resolution, the smoothness, the immersion, the extra features that playing a racing game in VR adds. The obvious big one is being able to actually look into the corners as you approach them and as you go around them, so you can see ahead on the track as you would if you were actually in a car, as opposed to, of course, playing a racing game on a telly. You have to always look dead forward when you go around corners, which is completely unnatural. You'd never do that in real life. You look into the corner, you turn your head. Little things like that is going to make GT7 insanely immersive. And I'm not even a sim racer, and I'm hyped for this game. I can see myself becoming a sim racer because of this game. In fact, I found myself browsing wheels because I think the extra added immersion of actually being able to hold your arms out rested on a wheel in front of you is just going to take it to another level. I mean, we're getting into uncanny valley territory here, guys. This is going to be mental. But yeah, apparently it's also really good with a dual sense. Obviously you got the haptics and stuff. I'm sure there's a control method, a mode that you could, move the controller like that rather than just a thumbstick, or whichever. That game has been impressing people. But still, bizarrely, some of the big channels, although they've raved about this game and said it's absolutely amazing, it's what many of them have said, it's the best VR experience they've ever had. And yet, sometimes in those same conversations, they still manage to shit on PSVR2 for ridiculous reasons that don't add up. Like, obviously, I'm fanboying all over the place, but some criticisms can be judged for whether they actually hold up to scrutiny. For example, Kind of Funny made a video about this, really big channel, kind of funny. And the guy who played it absolutely loved it, said it was amazing. He'd previously owned a PSVR1, so he's not biased against them, and yet still made some really strange criticisms. One that keeps coming up is there's not enough big games announced yet. Tell me any other VR headset in history that has had this number of big games at launch, or actually ever. Together, a launch that has 3 massive games and a load of top tier indies, over 30 games, well over 30 games at launch. No other headset has had that. So surely when you judge PSVR2, you have to judge it in the context of its competitors, all other VR headsets. one of the other criticisms people have been saying is that PSVR1 wasn't supported very well. But again, if you compare the PSVR1's game library to any other headset's library, it wins hands down on exclusives, as well as just being home to the vast majority of the best multiplats. But anyway, so it's just odd. There seems to be this almost need to shit on PSVR and PSVR2. You're allowed to not like things, but by the same token, people are allowed to think, hang on, that criticism doesn't make sense. Like, okay, the thing about not enough big games being announced yet. Sony have obviously got like 3 massive games for launch, and they're focusing their, honestly, slightly underwhelming marketing on the launch lineup, which makes sense. You want your launch, the games that are actually available, you want people to buy them. And then down the line, I'm sure we're going to hear about all of these other big bangers coming. They need to hold things in their back pocket for when Quest 3 starts to get promoted and marketed and getting close to release. You can bet your bottom dollar Sony's got a couple of absolute killer apps waiting to be dropped right around when Quest 3 comes out. There's no point putting all the cards on the table right now. When did that ever happen before? When did a console or headset ever come out before and then every single major game that they've got planned for the next 3 years is announced at launch? That doesn't happen. So the reason it's irritating is because some of these criticisms, they seem to be making one rule for PSVR 2 and one rule for everybody else. But anyway, yeah. I'm hyped. I'm excited. My launch lineup has changed a little bit. I've cancelled a couple of pre-orders because I've since discovered that they're going to get disc releases. So I think that's Cave Digger 2 and something else. I can't remember now. And I've added a few of those indie games that I wasn't previously going to get to my pre-order list. So I've added, there's one called Beyond Your Eyes, I believe, which is kind of like a story-driven, sort of emotive story that actually uses eye tracking. You actually control parts of the story by blinking. Not a lot. It sounds like there's not a lot of gameplay to it, but it sounds very charming, and it's a cheap game. It's like 10 quid. Tentacular. It's previously been out before, and I wasn't interested in it really, but then I read the Edge magazine article on PSVR2, which talked quite a bit about Tentacular because they had spoken with some of the developers for it, and it got me a bit more interested in it. It's kind of puzzly. They've made some changes to it, and they regard this to be the best version of it on PSVR2, which is going to be par for the course. So again, one of the weird criticisms is, oh, all these games have been out before on other platforms. Did multi-plat games never exist before? Sony's going to come out with a bunch of amazing exclusives and they're going to push the limits of what that headset is capable of. They're already doing it for launch. But you do also want all the multi-plats on there as well. You want every game available for VR to be on the headset you own, surely. Why would you not want the choice of all the games? It's just weird criticisms. That's why I've been going to bat for PSVR2 and totally acting like a shill for PSVR2, because I find myself just confused by some of these inconsistent, weird criticisms. It just seems like there's desperation. And, people have spoken on some of the reasons for that. Might be that, there's this idea of people being worried that VR will take over their hobby, their flat screen gaming hobby, that, change, don't like change. But of course, both of these markets can coexist alongside each other. It's not, you don't necessarily need to damage each other. That's not how it works really. That's, no one ever thought consoles and handhelds meant that both existed, meant that only one of them was valid or something. Anyway, Um, yeah. So Tentacular, I've pre-ordered that. With some others as well. I can't remember. There's a lot. I've gone crazy. But I have been doing a lot of overtime recently. I've been working 6 days a week since the middle of December, all the way up to launch. So working Monday to Friday and overtime every Sunday for 2 months so that I can go crazy at launch. There was absolutely no need. I already have a bunch of games that will see me through for quite a while. The PSVR1 games that are getting free upgrades like Pistol Whip, Beat Saber, and several others, quite a lot. A Song in the Smoke, No Man's Sky, which is a game that lasts forever. So I didn't need to splurge on the launch lineup, but I have done, and I don't regret it. It's going to be nice to have a smorgasbord of games to experience on the new headset. And to that end, I've kind of I'm going to try and stick to a certain kind of order of what I play when I get it. My idea is it will make sense to actually play the smaller indie games first and leave the really impressive big budget games till later on. For the obvious reason that, if you play the best of the best first and then go to the simple stuff, it's going to be less impressive. Whereas if you play the lower budget games first, right, you are still going to be really impressed by the extra enhancements that the PSVR2 gives as a piece of hardware. So you play something like Tentacular, Light Brigade, Hello Neighbor on PSVR2, you're going to be impressed by the extra resolution, the extra field of view, the haptics, the controllers. All these things are going to be, game-changing moments for you whilst playing these pretty modest, relatively modest games, right? So I think the experience of playing those lower budget games would be enhanced by just having, playing them on a brand new system with all those bells and whistles. And then you take it up another notch to play stuff like Resident Evil 8, Gran Turismo 7, and Horizon Call of the Mountain. So I hope I've got the self-restraint, self-control to do it in that order. It's unlikely, isn't it? But let's see. Let's see how what my self-control is like. But yeah, it ultimately doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. But this is what you do when you get excited about something. You project and plan and fantasize and obsess. And that's all we can do for the next couple of weeks is have this play this game of what am I going to do? Because it's definitely going to arrive at 7 o'clock in the morning on the Wednesday, guaranteed. Yeah. Well, whenever it does arrive, I've got a week and a half off, so that's me. That's me for that week and a half, and yeah, I don't envy the VR content creators on YouTube. I mean, I make videos, but I'm just using this as a sounding board, and I'm happy that you allow me that some of you will watch and listen on, and sharing the hype and the excitement. It's nice to do that. It's nice to share excitement, but I don't envy the real content creators who we're going to have to sort of balance their joy and excitement with the sort of work of creating content, reviews, and all the videos, and it's going to be awesome to watch it all. You're going to be bathing in content over that launch window. But there's going to be you're going to be busy. You're going to be busy boys. So support your local content creator if you can. I do a Patreon for Without Parole and Polish Paul now. Just started that because I value what they're doing. It takes a lot of time and effort to really do that to that level, to that commitment. So it's good. But yeah, the VR community that I've found on YouTube is so friendly and welcoming and supportive and joyous. It's a nice crowd, and They stay really well connected. They organise weekly multiplayers on games that otherwise might not have enough people on the servers. So it's nice to have that organisation to enjoy multiplayer, because multiplayer in VR, being inside game worlds with other people, is fantastic. Whether it's co-op or PvP, it's just amazing. And as I said, I'm not a sim racer, but that aspect of Gran Turismo 7 has got me really hyped. Of being in those cars and looking over and seeing the cars overtake you, or you overtake, more likely for me, ones that are overtaking me, knowing that they're all real people, and possibly even hearing their voices. I don't know how that'll work, but knowing that they're real people in other cars as you're in there is going to be something else. Yeah. So yeah, mixed. Although the reaction videos to the actual games have all been fantastic, like I said, there's still been some strange criticisms here and there. I'm trying not to get too bothered by it, but it's just, you want it to succeed as much as it possibly can, so that the potential of this medium is fulfilled. You know, it's VR for our generation. A lot of people of my age, it's something that you've fantasized about since you was a kid. It was back to like the Lawnmower Man in the 90s. You know, I played on some of the original VR, the first ones that came out, those huge headsets. I think it was 1993 was the first time I ever played VR. And it was fucking terrible. Of course it was. Like 12 frames a second, 420, 480p or something. Like terrible. I don't know what the fuck was going on in there. I can't even really remember the game that I played, but I definitely had a go on one. It was a standing up one. So it's probably some kind of like shooting thing. I don't remember. All I remember being very confused, really. But they tried to do it, and I played it when I was a kid. And this, and obviously the promise of things like, the holodeck, the Lawnmower Man, the rest of it, all the other films that fetishize this type of escapism, all the way through to things like what's it called, Existenz, one of my favorite films, Existenz, this bio VR unit that you plugged into your brain and sent you into some kind of Shenmue style role-playing world. Oh, come on, plug me in. But yeah, just the most immersive kind of escapism through entertainment you can possibly really have, and it's now getting to the stage where it can deliver on the promise. And all these things are starting to come together now, and it's so exciting to see that we're so close to that happening, or it is now literally happening now, with experiences as compelling as Gran Turismo 7 appears to be from across the board. People going, oh my god, shit! So yeah, it's exciting that we're just about there, but several things conspiring against us, like the bloody global economy decided to go to shit right before this came out. So everyone's a bit skint, and it costs a bit more than we'd like, and this, that, and the other. But yeah, that's it. That's my life at the minute. Just constant on loop PSVR2 hype. And I'm sure I'll see some of you in there when it drops. So if you plan on if you've got a pre-order for PSVR2 and you're going to have it day one, or at least within the first few weeks, tell me your PSN in the comments and we can hook up. I'll add you if I haven't already. I know I've got a few of you guys already on PSN, but let's make those connections so we can hook up and do some multiplayer VR gaming. That'll be sweet. Probably should have said that at the start of the video, so that everyone who watched it would have heard the call out. Maybe I'll put that in the low bar as well. Alright guys, that's enough for this vid. Ramble over. The hype is real. Let's go.